advisor, and I'm here to take you to a magical land. You first, lad. Friends can come too. Even grown-ups. I almost forgot. You too. Go!
This is a test. This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcasting system. This is only a test.
Hello, everybody. What's going on, Internet?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. We made it. What's going on, organizers? Rectangles.
Yeah.
Hi.
Uh-oh, we're falling down
Hello.
into the pit again. I didn't know we were going to do that.
We are once again falling into the pit. We didn't get out of the pit last month. I don't see why we would get out of it this month.
I thought it was just a Halloween horror situation, but no, we're just always falling into a pit.
Now it's just us. Eric McQuiggan, how you doing tonight?
When you fall into a bottomless pit, you die of starvation.
Wow. I love it. Jonah Davidson, how you doing?
I'm doing better now.
Excellent.
It's been a weird day, but I'm glad to be hanging out with good folks.
Hell yeah. Kizzy Adamo, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Getting through the hell year, you know.
Where's Yuffie?
Still going.
Everyone wants to know where Yuffie is.
She's in the corner. I can't bother her. She's sleeping.
Well, maybe if we had more subscribers throwing out the Yuffie
I know.
emotes, Yuffie
If
would
you
come out and play.
subscribe, then if the more you post the Yuffie emote, the more Yuffie goes appears on camera.
Have to set up we'll set up an alert at some point where every time that someone posts the alert, the emote, it just blares a loud air horn in your house and wakes her up.
Yeah, exactly.
We could have like a Yuffie cam, right? So every time you bust out like 3 emotes, it like cuts to the cam or something like that.
True.
Real quick.
I need to like attach a camera to her, like a selfie stick that with like a camera pointing at her.
Yeah. James Eversmith, what's going on?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know I'm always doing great. Got some Tyrannosaurus right here. Very
Nice.
good
Ooh.
Toronto-based pun style of ale.
Well, that looks fun. Very cool. No, yeah.
Having a fun old Toronto time. Having a fun old T-dot time. People still say T-dot. I don't know. I fell off with Toronto slang after the whole We the North thing.
You live there. You can say whatever you want.
I think the next Toronto slang name is going to be Tron.
That's all right. That's all right.
Tron.
I'm calling it now.
Liam Sauvé with the late introduction. Very
Them
professional.
guys, the North.
I got myself a Henderson's food truck, so I'm also doing the Toronto beer
Oh,
here
nice.
in Toronto, Canada.
Hell yeah. Eric Billingsley, last but not least, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
Any fun anecdotes about how you want to rename the short form of Ottawa to something?
I like Ottawa personally.
I like that too.
The Tucker Carlson, the Tucker Carlson pronunciation.
Yeah.
That or we go back to Odawa and like actually give it back to the Algonquins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be down with that.
Down
Although
for a
I am
change.
looking forward to Tron Legacy when people get bored of Tron.
That's Scarborough, actually.
I think O-Town is good too. We could just go with that.
We can lean into that. Folks, thanks for joining us. We got some people that want to come and show you some video games tonight, so we figured we would let them tell you about some video games that they've been making. Before that happens, though, we have some announcements. James, what you got for us?
Yes, Ivan. We get into announcements mode here.
Oh, yeah.
There are a few announcements, as traditionally done at the Toronto Dirty Rectangles events, and that is cribbed from the Hand-Eye Society calendar, which is always
Thanks,
a
Hand-Eye.
great source. If I'm going to crib from them, I will at least give them a shout-out. Yeah, great website. Always a good place to look if you're looking for game events that are happening in the Toronto area. So, a few things coming up. November 21st and 22nd is Wordplay, celebrating writing in contemporary games. It is a celebration of writing and narrative in games, various talks, usually various get-togethers. I'm not exactly sure what all the details of their undoubtedly online implementation this year is, but check it out on the website to see it. One thing I do know for sure is that they're looking for volunteers to help them actually run it this year. So I don't know if they have everybody yet that they need, but there's a volunteer form. You can sign up on their website, handisociety.com, look for it there. They're also having a call for offline games to be adopted to be online games for an online exhibition that Hand-Eye Society will be throwing. There's no word yet of when that actually is, but it's going to be part of some kind of program. I think they might be doing multiple things during the year at sort of set periods, but I just found out about it the other day, so I don't really know all the details. But yeah, if you have a game that is done or close to done, and it is mostly designed to be offline, they will be willing to port it to online capability and get it onto cyberspace for you, so that it can be in some kind of an online exhibition. So if that sounds like you or somebody you know, get in touch with them. It's also on their website. Another thing, although you can't look at it right now because YouTube is down for a whole bunch of people. It's down for me. It's down for my friend in North Carolina. So, yeah, I don't know who else it's down for, but
yeah,
probably
it's
a lot
down
of
for
people.
me too. So I think it's for everyone. So glad you can watch Dirty Rectangles instead, everybody.
Yeah.
Wait, did you say
Which-
YouTube is down?
Yeah,
It's
it's
down.
down.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
right
the
now.
website is up, but you can't actually watch a video on
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
So it kind of defeats the purpose. You can still read all the great comments sections, though.
Oh, good,
Um,
good.
I appreciate the social media. That's my favorite part of YouTube.
The reason that I bring it up is because Night of the Indigenous Devs 2020 is now loaded up onto YouTube. So yeah, search for that. I actually don't know how to pronounce it. Achimo Strowinen Games, I think, is the channel. I can't remember. But if you search for Night of the Indigenous Devs 2020, you'll find it.
throw a
Hopefully
link.
YouTube will be back up. Yeah, we'll put a link. And you'll be able to watch that at some point. Yeah, it premiered October 26th, but they just got it fully uploaded now. So yeah, check it out.
Cool. Are your glasses beeping every time they
They are
flash?
beeping. They do make a beeping noise. It comes in louder through my mic.
Okay.
But even in person, if you put your...
It's like I can hear electricity now.
I'm not sure where these were manufactured, but they decided to use some sort of a ballast on the controller that is a little bit noisy, which, that's just a safety... That's a safety measure.
I'd be a little concerned if my glasses were beeping.
It's the speed holes of glasses.
You gotta bleed that access energy somehow. Might as well make it an irritating beep sound.
That's hilarious. Any other announcements there?
The last thing that I'll throw out there is if you could pass Dirty Rectangles on to anyone you know, anyone you think might be interested, whether it's our VODs or actually inviting them to the channel or retweeting. Like it's the de rigueur thing for videos and streams, but please share us around. We only exist through word of mouth, especially now when literally no other way of transmitting information works. So and next month.
Yeah.
I don't know who I'm pointing at, but I'm pointing at somebody.
Right now you're pointing off into the void.
Pointing at
You're
Which
pointing
is
at Jeremy
exactly-
Penner on my
Which
screen.
is exactly where the next Dirty Rectangle stream may be. Traditionally, folks, we don't do a Dirty Rectangles live event in December. Everything's just too crazy. People got things going on the holidays. I mean, we're probably not going to do something for next month, but we probably are going to do something special, strange. Who knows? We'll find out. Keep keeping your ear to the ground for the Dirty Rectangles information.
Yeah.
But you might not see your typical Rectangle stream. We might do something different. It might be really chill. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
But just so you know.
I think we'll set up something fun for
Dirty
next month.
Rectangles Christmas special.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
yeah.
We'll figure out what to do for that, but yes.
Christmas specials traditionally go really well.
Yes, exactly. Very high quality.
System Chalk in the chat recommends a 24-hour X-Files game marathon. Kezia.
Yeah, I'm liking
That's not a bad idea.
Is there 24 hours worth of X-Files games?
There is when Kezia and I play it.
We did not progress.
I mean, you could just play Deadly Premonition, I guess, a couple times too.
Sounds
Throw
good,
that
too.
in there.
Yeah.
Okay, folks.
Premonition is the unofficial new game plus of X-Files, the game.
I have one more slate announcement. As always, at all of our Dirty Rectangles events, both in person and online, the code of conduct is in effect. So please go to dirtyrectangles.com, dirty-rectangles.com to familiarize yourself with the code of conduct. If you have any issues, please, you are more than welcome to reach out to any one of us personally. But there's also an anonymous report form should you have any issue with that.
I don't think you need the dash anymore, right?
I think it's 30 rectangles. I was looking at it today.
I think they both.
I've been on our website.
A little history. It used to be Dirty Rectangles, and DirtyRectangles.com used to be someone else's blog. But about 5 years ago, they stopped making the blog. So I waited until they lapsed their domain, and then I bought it. So we own DirtyRectangles.com, but we're still hosted as Dirty-Rectangles.com. It's DirtyRectangles.com will work.
Thank you, Eric. Should we
You snooze, you lose. What can I say?
Exactly.
Should we put on a show here? Should we move on? I think we should move on.
That sounds great.
We got some people coming up here. We're going to move on with our first presenter of the night. We got 4 really cool things coming at you. They're all real cool. Jonah looks like he has something to say.
No, that was just the. Right? No, wait. What I need? No. It's the Nintendo Direct. The directly to you, delivering to you
with the Switch sound. Click.
That was good. Okay, yeah, we're going to transition. We will be back in just a minute with our first presenter of the night. It's going to be one of those shows. Hang on to your butts. Here we go. right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with our very first presenter of the night, Mr. Jeremy Penner.
It's me. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm gonna show you some tooling that I built, and some old computer shit. So I hope everyone's into old computer shit. So some of you may know I wrote a game for MS-DOS PC, and I figured that wasn't, that wasn't enough constraints. So now I am porting that game to the Apple II. And I kind of decided to go a little nuts and build all my own tooling. So here you are looking at my editor. And the first thing I kind of did was I wrote my own 6502 assembler. And I did this it's in a language called Fennel, which is a Lisp, obviously with all the parentheses, but it compiles down to Lua code. And I actually kind of really love it. Yeah, I kind of really love, I'm getting really into Lua. I think Lua is really interesting. But yeah, here, I could just define all these random opcodes and like what the hex values of them are and, branches and whatever. And then because I wrote it in a Lisp, if I kind of look at, I don't know, say my game code, you can see here just, Lisp lists basically. And I'm just turning that into actual bytes that will run on the hardware. And the nice thing about having this stuff in a Lisp is that I have the full power of a programming language in order to generate this assembly code. So I can call functions. So this gets the ASCII value of the space character, and that's now the value that I would be loading into the array. And so that's nice for code generation, whatever. But then also I can do things like kind of have this, use it as like a super powerful macro assembler where I have this draw vertical block and I kind of unroll the loops automatically. Or I call this draw block, so it just pastes that in, and then I do some more stuff, and then I draw block again. Code. And one of the really neat things that I can do with that, though, is this thing here, load tiles, append tiles. What's that all about? Well, I have this, tiles.json file, which just has, well, it's kind of generated, but, it has some flags and some hex codes or whatever. And so, I have code that will take this JSON file and process it and turn it into bytes that get uploaded to or get compiled into the program automatically. But obviously, this isn't much of a graphic editor. So this is, I haven't tested this with the scale up, so it might be a little janky. But yeah, so I wrote my own tile editor. And kind of the route that I took to do this is a little funky. In that, you might be curious about the editor I'm using. It's called Light. And it is a minimalistic programmer's text editor, very extensible, and it is written in Lua. So what I did is, so because it has kind of its own backend for because Lua is embedded in C programs, right? That's kind of how Lua functions. So they kind of have this kind of C implemented API for drawing rectangles and drawing text and getting mouse events and stuff. But their backend's actually based on SDL, and it's actually really small. The amount of C code in this editor is very tiny. And so what I was actually able to do was port it to the Love2D game engine. So my text editor, has kind of the full power of Love2D. So yeah, I can draw graphical things in it, and do sprite drawing or anything. Because I've embedded it in this game editor or in this game engine, I have this programming editor. I can have kind of a very rich and very kind of easy to jam things on the screen. So yeah, you can kind of look at the different tiles. And so the Apple II graphic system is kind of super weird. Every byte is 7 pixels, but pixels don't really mean the same thing as you would normally expect. So tile shows up blue here, but it's all weird vertical stripes. It's because it uses basically is a weird hack to generate vaguely valid NTSC output. It basically drives the pixels faster than the video signal can actually interpret them, and it ends up interpreting that as color instead of a visible on-off pixel. So the Apple II graphics has a super weird constraint where it's even numbered pixels are blue, or if you do it this way, then it turns orange. You can see down here, whatever. And the 8th bit actually toggles which 2 colors it switches between. So for every 7 pixels, it can either be green and purple, or it can be blue and orange, which is a fun constraint when trying to design graphics. And of course, having that be interpreted, and if you have 2 white pixels in a row, it's always white, kind of. And if you have 2 black pixels in a row, it's always black. So you kind of have 6-ish colors. But yeah, I think I kind of did okay. But yeah, it's weird. So if I, draw a new tile, and you can kind of scribble in, and it's oh, that's green. No, it's blue. No, it's purple. And if you kind of make lines or whatever, it just kind of looks weird. But yeah, and then you can see I have kind of these flags here. So this tile is walkable, or this tile, Newt, the computer program, can walk through walls or whatever. And actually, to do this, I ended up writing my own media mode GUI library, kind of very minimalist kind of thing. But yeah, it was fun. So yeah, so I can draw pictures. Cool. And obviously, I would need to put them in some kind of tile map. So I built that too. So this thing has a map editor where you can kind of go in and drop your tiles down, whatever. This is replicating kind of the first level of Newt Tower for DOS. And yeah, I can say, oh, I want more clouds here, whatever. And then you get more clouds. And I also have kind of implemented a bit of an object editor. So in a Newt Tower level, you have obviously elements that you can bump into, and they call kind of custom code or whatever. You might trigger a dialog box or something like that, or you press this button and it's connected to this door. You can kind of see if I mouse over it, it shows oh yeah, this is definitely connected to that. And you can kind of link things up, or you can say, oh, I want this button to open that door, and that connects that over. So this is kind of a really nice method of kind of building up this kind of nice tooling. And so I don't really have to do it on the Apple. One of the things that was kind of annoying on, writing Newt Tower for DOS is this weird workflow of I would design a level partly in the editor, and then partly on paper. I'd have to write some stuff down. Okay, well, this object, I placed it at these coordinates, so I have to write the code that points it at these coordinates. Now, I don't have to do that anymore, which is nice. But one of the reasons I did this this way is because Lua is just kind of a really cool dynamic language. And so one of the things I have the ability to do is I can actually, here, let me look at the tile editor. So yeah, I have this nice thing, but I also I wanted to really have, one of the reasons I'm doing this is to have a really tough kind of feedback loop, to really be able to iterate quickly on everything kind of at every level. And so one of the things obviously that was kind of important to me that I wanted to do, and that this whole weird setup of writing my own editor allows me to do, is I have hot code reload. So I can say, okay, well, here's how I draw the tile view. and like, oh, I'm drawing the background, and let's say I don't want to use that background color. I want to try a different one. So I just, save the file, and then I hit Alt R, and then that reloads it and changes the background color. I can do something a little bit more visible than that, or like, I can like say, oh, I actually just want to move things over, 30 pixels or whatever. I just hit Control Alt R, and then it's there. So I kind of am using the editor to edit my editor in live, which is really fun, and just kind of a nice way to work. If something is broken, I can kind of fix it and hit the button. And usually, if there is an error, it won't crash the editor. It'll kind of give me a exception, stack trace, or whatever, and I can kind of look at it. Oh yeah, I do this. And sometimes it does crash the editor, but it's not too bad. I can get back up and running very quickly, so I haven't made it a huge priority to like stamp that out completely. But yeah, or like I can say, one of the things that's kind of nice, I can look in tiles.fennel and like, oh, if I want to add another flag, rectangles, say, I just save that, add this to this flag list, reload it, and now I have this checkbox that I can, set that flag. It's just there. And, if I decide I don't like it again, I can save it and reload it, and then that won't fix it, which is weird. Anyway, cool. Code reload always has a little bit of baggage. So great. I can write assembly code. I can edit graphics and stuff. And then kind of the next thing I wanted to do was have a strong integration with an emulator. So I actually bounced around between a couple of different emulators. I initially started with an emulator called GS Plus because I'd watched the developer had given a talk about how they had implemented kind of debugger support, which they exposed it over a socket. So they had this very simple socket interface that you could go and you could, send commands to. And I was interested in playing with that. And so I did. And then eventually I realized that the MAME project, which emulates basically every computer and every console, has a Lua plugin interface. It actually has a Lua interpreter built into it. And so actually what I'm able to do is I wrote a small plugin that exposes basically a REPL, a read-eval print loop, that I can send this Fennel code, this Lisp to, which compiles to Lua and runs within MAME, and I can do that from within my editor. So I can just, boot up. Oh, I'm running MAME, so I can boot MAME. It'll start up, and it pops up. MAME has its own kind of debugger, which is great. Means I don't have to write my own debugger. Why can't I shrink this? I want to shrink it. One of the things I haven't quite worked out yet is like just the nicety of like getting everything out of the way when I'm working on my monitor. But yeah, it starts pause, so I hit G for go, and then it boots up, and here's an Apple II. Cool. So one of the things about old computers like the Apple II is you need like an operating system and like disk reading routines and stuff like that. And I didn't really want to deal with that right away. I just kind of wanted to get my code running as quickly as I could get it. So instead, what I do is I just use the debugging, the Lua interface to say, just to say like, I'm going to write this code into memory because I can just compile my assembly down to bytecode. And then it says, okay, well, at this memory address, this is where I want to write it. So I can just literally use Lua code to overwrite memory. So I have this command called upload, and it uploads it into memory, and then it types on the keyboard real fast. What it did there was it said column -151, which jumps to the built-in assembly machine language monitor, which the Apple II has, which is super cool because it actually like built into ROM. The Apple II had a full assembler and disassembler. and like debugger, and like it's incredibly useful. Just to like make sure that my assembler was actually working right, and you know, a number of things. And so like you can call into that and then just say, oh, I want to jump to this memory address, and then it just jumps to that memory address. So I just programmed my code into memory and then jumped to it. And so that's what happened there. And that's all automated for me. So I can boot my game, which is cool. So now here's what it kind of looks like running in this emulator, which is neat. But the real fun thing that I can do is I can go in and say, I'm just going to add, you know, a command here. It says clear the screen after you draw the map. And then I believe it's Alt-L. And that is hot code reload running on the Apple II. Which I can do again because I have the ability to do anything, right? I can read and rewrite memory from my editor, no problem. So I basically just recompiled it, waited for this VM hot swap sync for that code to run, which means like it's in a good state to do this kind of thing. And I'm just going to get rid of that and then reload that. And then, yeah, just like it just resync, you know, it writes the new program out. At some point when I actually have state, because like really all that I have running right now is the graphics routines. So I can't actually move the character around or show you any puzzles or anything like that because that's not built yet. Yeah, so I have this ability to, and because like I wrote my own compiler system or whatever, I can say, okay, well, here's the area of memory that you need to like move around or keep to make like, you know, if I change the map or whatever and reload, like here you'll move the objects into memory, but it'll retain my state of like where my characters are on the map or whatever. So like that's something that I'm looking forward to kind of building. And again, like I can go into the tile editor here and I can say, you know, I want to turn this guy purple. And, you know, I can just kind of go in and do that and then hit save and then hit Alt-L and then the sky is purple. So that's, I actually just got this working in, it was working in GS Plus, but I had to basically rewrite everything for MAME, but it does work now and it's super cool. Yeah. Oh, and I guess the last thing I want to show you is I have this Apple II Plus sitting here, which literally I bought this from a lovely older gentleman who had it installed in a suitcase. So if anyone remembers when I would bring my 286 in a suitcase to Rectangles to the Avant-Garde bar, computer is literally like the disk drives are strapped into this suitcase. So it is as portable as an Apple II Plus can possibly get. So let me just boot this up. All right. I don't know how good the picture is, whether you can read that or not. I'm using a real wood grain CRT TV. The picture is not great, especially since it is like 1979 RF modulator in this thing. So like there's a whole chain of bad, ugly video signal going through here. But yeah, one thing that I'm able to do is I also this machine doesn't have a serial port installed. You could buy a serial card, which I could connect to USB or whatever like that. I actually have a second machine, an Apple II GS, that does have serial support. But this one does not. But what it does have is a cassette port, which means because my editor is written in a game engine, so I'm just going to kill MAME here. And then I can switch to tape. And now my upload command, when I run it, makes a horrible noise. And so if I take this, just standard stereo plug, and I plug it into my laptop, and I'm not going to be able to hear you. And if you talk over this, it will probably break. There we go. I'm plugged into the matrix, and then I type load, and then I hit upload. It just beeped because it figured out the first. There's like 5 sections that it generates, but literally I just generate a sound, and then play it with the Love 2D audio engine. And then it, at like 1200 bits per second, uploads my code. That's more errors than I expect, so hopefully this works okay. I might have to try this a second time, but we'll see. Oh, no, there it goes. And you can see my purple sky. That TV is incredibly loud for when it's turned off, so it... oh no, I can turn the volume down. Okay, that's not so bad. But yeah, so like I'm able to run this on actual hardware through the power of audio, which is super fun. I haven't implemented hot code reload over the cassette port yet. I'm thinking about it. It's probably going to happen, because it's really just like writing a small kind of debug stub. Just a little bit of code that, reads data from the port and writes to memory. And, as long as I'm careful enough to not overwrite the small piece of code that does that, then it should be okay. So yeah, I'm hoping to get that working. And also there's definitely been like a lot of crazy people who have done a bunch of research into like how to make that go fast. There is like a website where you can literally from your phone say, I want to play this game, plug the headphone port, plug this cable in one end into the headphone port in your phone and the other into the Apple II, hit go, and it, will blast out the game through this interface, and, it's streaming games for your Apple II. So yeah, I think that'll be a real fun to play with. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have going on right now. But I would love if anyone has any questions or anything they want to know more about. I am more than happy to show off stuff.
Jeremy, this is the coolest.
Awesome.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Here, we could turn our cams on here while we have some questions. What? Okay, so I don't want to jump straight to what's next or something, because like you just keep pulling out these random cool things and you're like, and then this, but what if we try this?
Yeah.
Man, this is just so cool. But like where would be the next thing that you would want to like tackle? What's the next hardware for you?
Next hardware? I don't know. Yeah, I kind of like want to take what I'm learning from this, and like I do kind of want to bring the ideas into the modern computing platforms. So like I don't know. The next thing I want to do after this is kind of like once I actually have a game working, that's obviously going to take me a bunch more time. But like I don't know, I just am really enjoying working in Lua and like with these kind of like small dynamic programs and small dynamic tools that can integrate really well. The light editor is it's small, like you can just like read the code and figure out how everything works. And just like no piece of this puzzle is like more than a few hundred lines of code.
Right.
So it's just really easy to make changes to or tweak or make it do the kind of thing I want to do. And I just like I'm really interested in kind of making that tooling, I don't know, more accessible, I guess, or just like I just want my computer to work like that all the time. And so far, the best way I know how to like keep the scope down of that is to work on something like very focused and very like kind of resource constrained. But yeah, I would love to kind of take what I'm learning from this and make something that is more broadly, make these nice tools that are very hackable and very easy to understand and kind of more accessible.
Yeah.
When you're like working with stuff like figuring out stuff like, oh, I'm going to use MAME to like sort of emulate it right off the bat, and then I'm going to be able to use the debugger through that. Like, is this stuff that you just sort of like knew from previous experience on other projects, or from just muddling around, or was it something that you actually figured out like while you were actively working on those?
I definitely did not think about MAME when I first started. I forget how I realized, I was just reading about it or something like that, where I forget how I remembered that MAME actually has a Lua interface to it, but it was kind of in the back of my head, oh yeah, this might be something to kind of investigate and dig into a little more and see if I can leverage that. Because then the really nice thing about kind of this environment, and coupling with MAME, is that MAME emulates everything, and 6502 chips are in lots of things. So it wouldn't actually be that much of a stretch to then go on and adapt, a lot of what I've done to NES, right?
Right.
The code could probably be very similar. And then so I'm really excited about MAME because it's a very flexible interface. I can do, you can control virtually everything about the running system. They've exposed it. The documentation is awful. The documentation is basically the code. There's a short page that's kind of here's some nice examples of how things work. And if you want anything more, it doesn't even say read Lua engine.cpp, but you need to read Lua engine.cpp. So, I mean, that's not the best, but, I'm glad it's there. And I can use it. I don't even remember your question. I just rambled.
No, I think you answered it mostly. I was just wondering what sort of your process was, what sort of, led you to kind of investigate these different avenues for doing different aspects of it. If it was just something that, sort of came together organically from stuff you already knew, or if it was something where you were looking for a solution and then found it.
I definitely had the idea from the start of the thing that was kind of driving the whole thing was that I definitely wanted to have hot code reload running in an emulator. Was number one the cool trick that I wanted to pull. And then kind of everything from that was I really bounced around a lot. My first attempt was not in Fennel. I started writing an assembler in Racket, which is I definitely knew I wanted to write to kind of, I had written a fourth, which is the tiniest powerful language, and then I kind of wanted to see, okay, well, what happens if I use a Lisp, which is kind of the other end of the scale, I guess, of the weird guru wizard languages or whatever. So I played with a couple of different Lisps, but I tried in Racket, and I didn't really like that. And I knew some people who had been working with Fennel and kind of was investigating that. And then I don't know, I think just I see a lot of people on Mastodon just posting weird, interesting tools and stuff, and just I think that's how I came across the Light editor, and I'm oh, this is perfect. If I can take this editor and kind of build my own IDE out of it, that would be incredible. And then the whole Love to Do thing happened. Just I was looking at the code and realized, oh yeah, this is really small. I could just do that. And I did it in an evening or two. Ported the editor to Love2D. It was not a big project. I kind of just did it because I wanted to see if I could do it. And then once I had it, it was oh, this is going to be really useful. So yeah, I don't know. A little both.
Now that you
go ahead, Eric.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, now that you have this audio representation of your program, Is there any way you could get that onto an actual like physical cassette tape and then play it to the cassette port? And
So you can definitely like that would totally work. But one of the downsides of cassettes that my laptop doesn't have is that cassette is a very kind of physical analog device. So like the speed that it plays at is not necessarily like exactly constant, and so the pitches might go down or whatever, and the timings might be off. So like one of the things that I'd mentioned you can download games for the cassette port on your phone. One of the things it does is like, okay, well, I can control the sample rate at a very high precision. So I can set I know exactly this. I output 2 samples at full power 1, and then 1 sample at -1 and whatever, and like I can very precisely measure the timing of what that's going to be, and so that allows them to kind of do this bootstrap of much faster transfer speeds. So I think for debugging and like if I do the hot code reload over that, like I would want to do something like that. But certainly, yeah, like if I just recorded what came out of my computer onto a tape and then played it back, like that should totally work.
Or like vinyl.
Yeah.
Put your game on vinyl.
Radio broadcast.
Yeah.
That was a thing that happened in some places. I know I have a coworker who tells me from Poland, and he would tell me, oh yeah, sometimes they would have radio broadcast games or whatever programs just say start your tape recorder. Cool. I'm gonna play it now. And
isn't that the satellite view? Was that the NES or no Super Nintendo peripheral that came out in Japan that like connected to satellite and pulled games down like that? And I think it also used sound or something like that to pull it down.
You could load games onto the Atari via cassette tapes.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Starpath Supercharger. That's a neat device. It's like 6K of RAM, and then it's got a loading interface to it. It was kind of the way that Atari hackers figured out how to load, how they first kind of got access.
Yeah, they got their homebrew working on it.
Jeremy, before we let you go, you seem like the kind of person to ask this question. If I wanted to homebrew for some like old random piece of hardware or whatever, where would one start?
So it really depends on the piece of hardware. There's a lot of different.
Let's say it's one of these.
There is honestly sorry.
Let's say it's an Atari 600. One of these guys. What would I do? Where would I go? Who do I talk to?
What are you showing up there?
Oh, it's an Atari 600 XL. It's got it's the monkey keyboard on it. It has basic.
Beautiful.
It has basic programmed into it.
Yeah.
So I guess I could just.
So for that thing, I don't know much about. There is always some community of dorks who grew up with it and love it and are like still keeping it alive and like building cool new tooling and whatever. And like there's if you're searching around, you'll find it. With the Atari 8-bits, it's probably Atari Age. Is generally like the gathering point of like anything Atari really.
Okay.
But you definitely want to get a FujiNet for that, 100%, which is a piece of hardware that's still kind of being developed right now, but should hopefully be kind of finalized soon. But it basically is a full Wi-Fi capability for the Atari 8-bit, and it emulates basically every device. So you can like load games over the internet, and it'll just pretend, oh, I'm a disk drive, and I have this disk image in me. And it's like less than $100 in parts. Like it's this $30 Wi-Fi capable ESP32 board with some extra connectors and stuff.
Oh man,
it kind of rules.
Project.
Yep. I actually 3D printed the connector piece. It's sitting around here somewhere. I want to build my own, but I have a million things that I'm doing.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your amazing presentation. Any last questions or anything before we take off from anybody here? Cool.
If I'm on
Jeremy-
the internet, you can find me. You can ask me.
Yeah, Jeremy at SpinleyQ on the internet. Also, I'm sure you'll be back soon with some other crazy contraption. All right, we will be back in just a minute with our next presenter. Hang tight.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with our second presenter of the night, Norman Chalk. What's going on, Norman?
Hello.
Take it away.
All right. I don't really like clickbait. I sort of believe in delivering on the title of my presentations. So if you are here to find out how much a wish list is worth, I will not waste your time. It's about $2 or $3. Now, I'm probably not going to get invited back if I just leave it at that. So by the end of this presentation, I expect that you won't just know what the value of a wish list is, but specifically why we might be interested in that value and how we can arrive at that number. Now, before I go any further, I should just say I have a slightly different setup that I'm going to be broadcasting from right now. So I can't read live chat, but I believe the hosts have been kind enough to sort of agree to take the interesting questions. So feel free to put those in chat. I just can't read them right now. My apologies. So in terms of trying to find out what the wish list value will be, in my opinion, the best way to approach something like this is to imagine what a perfect project would look like if you didn't have any restrictions. And so the way that I would approach this without restrictions would be to follow every individual who wish lists your game, see which ones buy the game, or to use the terminology I'm going to be using in this presentation, to convert it from a wish list to a sale, observe the price at which that conversion happens, and then finally combine everyone, including the people who didn't convert, into an average. It's actually a really simple process, but of course, unless you work for Valve or Big Brother, you're never actually going to be able to do this. And so we're going to need to find another approach, but Valve hasn't left us completely in the dark. So what these are 3 files that Valve is going to give you if you have a game on Steam. For those of you who've released something on Steam, you'll probably be familiar with these 3 files. But for those of you who are either about to release something on Steam or are otherwise unfamiliar with them, I'm going to do a quick rundown just so we can all kind of have a common understanding. The wishlist file will give you daily information about who wishlisted your game. The sales file will give you your daily sales information, and that's broken down by region. And then finally, in my opinion, this is the most underrated of the files, but there's the wishlist cohorts file. That is going to give you daily conversion data for each wishlist cohort. And the only drawback about that file is that the wishlist cohorts are aggregated into months rather than the daily information that's present from the wishlist file. So how are we, people who do not work for Valve, find out? And the answer to that is we estimate. Now, math will usually freak people out in these kinds of presentations, but the good news is it's a simple formula and I've written it in English. The value of an individual wish list is the average price at which the wish list converted, and then you discount that by the probability that the conversion actually happened. Now, what's great about this is we already know the propensity to convert because we take the number of conversions, that comes from the wishlist cohorts file, and we divide that by the number of wish lists that were in that wishlist cohort, that comes from the wishlist file. We also have the average price. And again, the wishlist cohorts file gives us the daily conversion information, and the sales file tells us the price at which that conversion occurred. Now, excuse me, sorry. This last part is important, and I think this is really where the added value of this approach comes from, because we know that many more people are going to buy the game when it's discounted. So if we don't do something like this, if we just simply apply the base price, then we're probably going to be overestimating the wishlist value overall. Now, this isn't a theoretical exercise. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on methodology. But I do want to take a quick minute to go just over a couple of details here. And the main reason for this is that there's very little about what I'm going to show you here that's beyond your abilities. I did sort of a more complicated version of this. I'm going to be showing you the result of 100,000 simulations for each game. Some of you who are maybe familiar with data science or econometrics might know what I'm doing as a bootstrap. If you don't know what a bootstrap is, you don't need to know. And then there were 3 games, so there's a total of 300,000 simulations. The big thing about this is that the results are actually very close to what you would get if you took a weighted average. Mathematically, that has to be the case. The only reason I say it's similar is because the simulations always involve a little bit of randomness. I did actually do it both ways to verify that. And again, I had my own reasons for taking the complicated approach, mostly in terms of what I'm going to do with this in the future. But I can tell you that the analytical solution, if you just take a weighted average or the weighted arithmetic mean or the weighted mean, there's a few different things that people will call that. One, it's pretty much going to be available in any software that you use. And then it also runs a lot faster than than it took me. And for the larger files, you don't run out of memory, like what happened the first time I ran this. But as far as methodology is concerned, I think we can have a chat about that after the meetup, because I think the real fun in this is to take a look at the insights in terms of the games that we're looking at. So the results that I'm about to show you come from Kitfox Games. They were kind enough to give me the 3 files that we talked about a couple of slides ago. And they did it for 3 of their games: Moon Hunters, The Shrouded Isle, and Fit for a King. The challenge I have right now is that I know some of you have worked with them, and they likely don't require an introduction. But again, I want to go from a common understanding. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Kitfox Games, they're a Montreal-based developer and a publisher. And overall, they seem like very classy people, which will bring me to a word from our sponsors. Kitfox just released Lucifer Within Us last month. I think it's really, really good, but I am obligated to disclose that I was given a press key for promotional purposes as well. Their former communications director, Victoria, was a complete sweetheart and let me embark on this little journey in the first place. She also gives out some great advice on communications and community management on her Twitter, as well as some funny TikToks. So you can follow her at the VTran if you're not already. Also, Tanya X Short, co-founder of Kitfox, gave great feedback for this, basically a blog that this presentation is going to be turned into. And again, is a tremendous resource for game development knowledge through her Twitter. She also is a director and I think organizes Pixels in Montreal. And again, I realize the risk that I'm running here is I'm describing people who I'm sure a few of you probably know socially. And so I should probably just leave the praise at that before I say something misleading. But I will add that if you buy Lucifer Within Us and you get all your friends to buy it, that generates more data for them and they'll be compelled to come back to me for more analysis. All right, here's the real data. Now, keep in mind, the one thing I want you to keep in the back of your mind through all of this is our little formula. So that's going to be the average price of conversion discounted by the probability of conversion. And this is a chart of that first part, the average price of conversion by cohort. Everything here is in US dollars. It actually also accounts for things like taxes and foreign exchange differences. The only thing that isn't taken away from that price is Steam's 30%. Now, I think to a certain extent, average prices are a bit self-explanatory. I think this will be the thing that people are most familiar with. And so what I would really want to focus on this slide is to talk a bit about the data, because there are a few quirks that I want to get out of the way. Each of the wishlist cohorts have been normalized to be relative to their release date. One of the reasons for this is that Moon Hunters was released in 2016, The Shrouded Isle was released in 2017, and Fit for a King was released in 2019. So the dates themselves are maybe not quite as interesting as being able to say, was this thing released, or was this wish list something that was done before or after release? And then obviously, if you look at the absolute value of any of these numbered cohorts, that's going to give you an idea of the distance from release date, which is probably the thing that people are most interested in. If you don't mind, I'm just going to pause quickly for some refreshment because I have been talking a lot. All right. I also think I just threw off my timing. Now, this time difference, the difference in terms of years, this is also going to be important when we're interpreting the results. And I'm actually going to mark it a few times, probably too many times, but I do think the timing difference is important. So that's a thing I'll get you to keep in the back of your mind, and I'll flag it when it becomes relevant. One of the last factors I want to talk about that's unique to this project is that the data for Moon Hunters is incomplete. And so what I did there was I used some observed similarities between it and the Shrouded Isle to impute values for the missing periods. Those values are indicated by a dotted line. So if you see the dotted line that's on the left-hand side in purple, that's an indication of something where I did an estimation. I think it's a pretty robust exercise that I did, but this isn't actually something that happened in history. This is me kind of doing a what if sort of an exercise. Now, these prices may be different from monthly sales averages, and this is because we're describing the behaviors of a subset of buyers, the people who wish listed. But understandably, the price goes down over time as wish listers take advantage of the same discounts that regular buyers will. This, of course, invites the question, what's going on with these sudden jumps for the Shrouded Isle and Fit for a King? And this is where the timing becomes important. I got these two data sets at a different time than the Moon Hunters data set, and they contain a partial month in which a couple of people wish listed the game and then bought it within the same month. Now, you can verify this directly, but another thing you can do to just confirm your understanding is to run sort of a bit of a hypothesis. If that explanation is correct, then what we should expect is when we look at the propensity to convert, we should see a very low probability of conversion, because basically there's all these people who have wishlisted waiting for a discount and only a couple of people who actually wound up buying the game, and God bless them for paying full price. I can't actually tell you that that's exactly what happened because I verified it, but that's a bit of a way that you can get a good grip on finding out whether or not you understand your data really well, which I think is important. It also speaks to a more general problem in terms of comparing these three series. I didn't actually do you any favors by putting them on the same graph, other than the fact it makes them a bit easier to present. The best way that I can illustrate the problem in making comparisons on this particular graph and the other two that I'm going to show you is to consider something like the cohort that happens, the cohort that's 12 months after release. If we take a look at Moon Hunters, this cohort is going to reflect about 3 years worth of opportunities for people to convert, and of course all of the discounts that implies. If we did the same cohort, the 12-month cohort for Fit for a King, it's maybe a month, if that, for this cohort. And so it's really not fair to compare a game that has had years of opportunities for conversion to a game that's had 1 month of conversion. You may wonder why I allowed this to happen then. And it's a question about where the focus of the analysis is. For this particular analysis, I wanted to get as close to the quote-unquote true value of a wish list as possible, and that means using as much data as possible. I think probably, November 2020 is about the easiest time for me to say, there can be some benefits in counting everything that you can. But again, it's a choice that has consequences. What you may want to do with this kind of a method is instead to compare games. And if you want to do a comparison, what you should do instead is pick a cutoff date. One example might be 1 year after release, and then keep it consistent between the games that you're comparing. Both are acceptable. What it really depends on is what kind of a question you're interested in answering. And in my case here, I'm kind of taking this, if we had infinite time, what would the value of a wish list look like? That'll be true for the remaining graphs. So we've now moved on to our second component in terms of this equation for wishlist value. This is the propensity to convert by wishlist cohort. Now, as we sort of expected from the previous result, the way that we explain the sudden jump in the prices among the cohorts, we sort of see this precipitous drop at the end. And this again reflects the fact that these cohorts simply hadn't had enough time to convert. I should maybe mention at this time, the median time to convert is about 7 months. But there are also multiple instances of people waiting quite literally years before converting their wish list into a sale. Likewise, if we move past the dotted line, again, that's where I imputed values, you can sort of see my justification in using the propensities from the Shrouded Isle to inform Moon Hunters, because the rates are really close until you start getting in that 7-month window. You'll sort of notice that the last 7 cohorts for each series sort of drop down. My answer for that is that these are people who will probably likely be converting over time, and we just haven't given them enough time to do so. I haven't pictured it here, but I should actually mention the price at conversion as a fraction of the base price also showed some regularity between Moon Hunters and the Shrouded Isle, but that adjustment was a little bit more complicated, so I haven't shown it here. You're probably going to get tired of hearing me say this, but this chart also demonstrates the peril in comparing the games against each other. Fit for a King has a noticeably lower propensity to convert than the other 2 games. And we might be forgiven for coming up with some kind of a conclusion that's, says, well, Fit for a King just had low quality wish lists. You actually hear this quite a bit if you, read Gama Sutra, or you hear people talking about wish list quality. The thing is that if we base this conclusion off of the comparison with Moon Hunters and the Shrouded Isle, we'd be mistaken. It's a mistaken inference that we're drawing. The conversion rates for the other 2 games reflect the discounts and the other opportunities to convert over years. And really, all but the earliest cohorts for Fit for a King have had less than a year to convert. And the majority of the cohorts that we're looking at fall within the 7-month window. This is, of course, assuming that Fit for a King sort of follows these other 2 games. The 7-month window is not a rule. It's just a regularity that's been observed in the data for these 3 games. Now, as it happens, Fit for a King really does have a lower propensity to convert than the Shrouded Isle. But the way that I determined that was to compare the first year of the Shrouded Isle sales against the first year of Fit for a King sales. I didn't compare the full series of each against each other for that one. And again, that's not pictured in this chart. Now, there's no rule that makes this so, but my expectation would basically be that as we move forward in time, you'll start seeing the Fit for a King series start to move up. Obviously, it'll move out to the right because the game's getting older. There will be more people with opportunities to wishlist the game. But my expectation for Fit for a King will be that it's probably about 5 or 10% less than the other two games. It is a bit of a more of a niche game, although I should also say maybe with the game going on discount, it'll find its audience, and the conversion rate will be just the same as Moonhunters and the Shrouded Isle. I just haven't found any evidence that it'll be similar to those other games yet. Now, there is one surprise for me in terms of this graph, and it's basically at how consistent the conversion rate over the long run is. Again, we'll ignore the drops at the end because we have an explanation for those. It's just they haven't had enough time to convert. But everything sort of seems to be hovering at around 30%. I will maybe note that Moonhunters has got maybe a sudden surge in its 4th year, and I don't have an answer for why that is, but I don't think anybody has ever complained about too many people buying their game. What I interpret this as is that post-release wishlist behavior is basically a negotiation about price. At least as far as these Kitfox games are concerned, it basically seems that about a third of the people who wishlist them intend to buy it. And what this really is, it's more of a question about what threshold at which they'll buy the game. And this is why I sort of propose that the most effective measure of wishlist value is that combination of price and conversion rate. So this is what happens when we combine everything. This is what we were looking for. This is the estimated value of each wishlist cohort. And again, in US dollars after foreign exchange and taxes are taken care of. The shaded areas are back. So these shaded areas sort of, they're representing the uncertainty with my estimate in terms of what the price is. Again, I did simulations, and so I was able to get a measure of sort of the precision of my estimates. Basically, the more narrow the shaded area is, the more certain it is, the more precise the estimate, the wider the range, the more uncertainty there is in terms of how good I got my price estimate. Basically, there is one thing that probably is the same as what we would have expected from the start, and that's the estimated value of a wish list decreases over time. But because we've looked at the two individual components of this value calculation, we can actually be more specific in terms of saying why. The lower wish list value reflects that the wish list cohorts are taking advantage of lower discounts. And I think what's interesting about this is that the pre-release cohorts are the highest value ones, since they, and the reason I think this is surprising is that they face the same opportunities to wait for a discount as any other buyer. Someone might make the argument saying it's like, well, they've also been waiting the longest, right? In the case of something like the Shrouded Isle, you have the people who wish listed on release waiting about 10 months to buy the game. But if that were true, we would sort of expect the cohort that wish listed a month before the game to come out to be of a lower, have a lower expected value. And that's not what happens. They're both about the same value. And statistically, if you look at that confidence interval, they're pretty much indistinguishable. It's just shy of $3 in those two cases. Now, there is still an intuitive explanation for why. It's basically that the pre-release cohorts are most likely to include fans of the developer or the game itself. Some of you might even say it's like, well, I could have told you that. And my only appeal in that sense is to say that if we were content with opinion, we wouldn't need the data to tell us that. But data can sometimes give us surprises, like saying that the conversion rate is actually surprisingly stable over the long run. I also see this chart as sort of a confirmation of the view that the post-release wish lists are price negotiations. One of the best days for wish lists has consistently been on release day. And this is true for basically every game that I've ever been given wish list data for. Some other days that are very good for wish list ads are the game's announcement. And you can usually identify things like people going to PAX in the wish list file, because you see these big spikes in terms of wish list ads. We've already sort of seen in the case of the Shrouded Isle that the release day cohorts aren't any less likely to convert than the pre-release cohorts. And I would sort of say that this is actually a fairly intuitive revelation as well, the idea of the post-release being a negotiation about price. And the reason I say that is because the people who are content to pay the base price are probably just going to buy the game without wish listing it. The people who wish list are basically saying, I'm interested, but I'm not interested at that price. And what I'm kind of hoping that this breakdown of the dynamics behind these series does is I'm hoping that it will illustrate how moving from this binary view of wish list quality, basically did you buy or did you not buy, to sort of the spectrum, which is measured in terms of price, it basically gives us a richer view of the consumer behavior. So before I finish, I'd like to leave you with some parting thoughts. Wish lists are kind of this highly sought after group, and basically it's easy to understand why. They're an indication of your success in marketing. It's also an opportunity to sell games. And I think that by focusing on the individuals rather than just aggregate numbers, we've gained a better understanding of the behavior of this sought after group. I do think one very important takeaway from this presentation is that the differences between the three games on the charts indicate the importance of defining the scope of what you're investigating. Because I was looking for the true wish list value, I wanted to use all of the available data. If you're looking to just do comparisons, then ideally you're going to use a cutoff. And the ideal cutoff will be one that either you think you're going to want to do in the future or something that you think your peers are going to do. Obviously, so far as I can tell, this is the first time anybody's done this. And so we're kind of in the Wild West in terms of deciding what a meaningful cutoff is that is still useful for you making business decisions. But it is important to do those cutoffs if you're wanting to do comparison instead of get this sort of omniscient view of what a wish list value is. I will repeat kind of what I think is the most robust and interesting finding out of this, which is that pre-release wish lists are the most valuable, while post-release wish lists do seem to convert at the same rate, but are basically haggling over price. And then finally, I think this project speaks to the value of sharing data. Sharing data isn't just going to help you get a better idea of what's going on, it helps your peers. If you found this presentation useful, please remember that it was KitFox's willingness to basically give a near stranger access to their sales and wish list data, not something you'd normally associate with private enterprise. And this is why I've given them the last bullet point. KitFox Games makes excellent games that you should buy and wishlist as many as you can afford so that they may enrich your life and hopefully invalidate this presentation. So they asked me to come back and update them to account for the dirty rectangles effect. If
Gotta
you'd
get that dirty rectangles bump.
Yeah. If you'd like to hear more from me, there's some places that you can find me. I tweet, and you can go through the timeline to find reasons to be upset with me. Most people do. I check my email pretty regularly if you'd rather not have a conversation in public. I don't do a lot of data stuff on Twitch, but it is worth remembering that I went to Dirty Rectangles to look for some local games to show off. I've shown off Eric's Spring Falls, a couple of Sean's Bitsy games, and I'd be happy to show yours if you're interested in that. And if you haven't gotten tired of my opinions up to this point, I do also have a blog which doesn't have a ton of data stuff, but life's still young. I'll get some of them on there.
Woo.
I will accept your Doritos.
Awesome.
Woo, woo. Yeah, let's get some Doritos in the chat from Norman here. Data King Norman.
Maybe I'll send you my CSV files.
You should. You should.
I'd be delighted. Yeah. So if that's not clear, like I'm very happy to look at any data that people are willing to send my way. For the reason that I said before, sharing data is something that will give you an insight about what's happening to your games. But right now we have a good idea of what's happened to 3 old KitFox games. There's more games than KitFox games, I'm told, at least. I've been spending a lot of time in Moonhunters. Sorry, Eric, I stepped on your statement.
No, it's all good. Moonhunters is excellent.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So, what was the... I don't even know what you could talk about, but I'm curious about the time frame that how much effort goes into mining out this data. What does that process look like for you?
That's actually a really good question, because I did, in the methodology part, I did want to stress that it's within the abilities of pretty much everyone, but it's easy for me to say that. So, I mean, it is worth keeping in mind, I'm an economist in my day job, right, and I do this sort of stuff pretty regularly. But I think doing a weighted average is something that you could do inside of Excel. I hope you don't, because there's just simply more faster ways of doing it. The good news is that I've kind of built some tools to sort of automate the process a little bit. So it's actually not that time consuming. I think I did an updated version for Lucifer Within Us. I don't know if I had the permission to send that off, so that's not included inside there yet. And it's only been out for a week, so there's no price variation. Right. That's interesting there. Or not a week. Sorry, at the time it was given to me, it was a week worth of data. But yeah, I think probably like maybe an afternoon of work to get the infrastructure in. I love noodling away with this stuff constantly. So like I'll probably say I've been working on it for months, but like in the sense of like, hey, what if I did this weird thing in here? But
right.
Really the hardest part is to just get those weights right. And in this case here, the cohorts file really gives you what you need. And if you don't do the bootstraps like I did, it's basically just an exercise of multiplication. And on a bad day, you maybe need to do a little division.
No one wants to do division. Too old for division.
Yeah.
My number one favorite, or my number one wish listed game on Steam right now is actually a Kid Fox game. So.
Your number one on Steam? Is it Dwarf Fortress?
It is Dwarf Fortress.
There's
I gotta pick that
nearly 20 years of playing Dwarf Fortress. I'm very excited to see what the Kid Fox version comes out with. And Tony X Short's books with Tarn are some of my references I use for the procedural generation. So
that's great. I felt like this complete stalker because like in doing the homework for this, I kind of wanted to get an idea of who like Kit Fox were and all of that. So I'd been in touch with Victoria because of the streaming stuff, but like I looked at all of her GDC talks. I tried to find as many of Tanya's talks, and like you're just obsessively following everything that this studio's put out. And then it's like, yeah, this actually feels kind of weird after a bit, but it's the same I've ever done, even when I was in school. Like, if I'm studying something, I'll research as much as I can. But I did have to send a slightly embarrassed email saying, it's like, I did all this homework, but my academic library credentials were curtailed since graduation. So I didn't have access to the book she co-edited with Tarn Adams.
Oh, interesting.
Then again, I mean, procedural generation isn't important to the data analysis, so it's I think I'll read it before the test.
Sorry, it's extremely important to me.
Cool. Any other questions from folks, organizers here? Last chance, get your questions in the chat.
There was actually one I'm scrolling up here. So Nilo Cat said, so like, could you use the value at any given time, multiply it by your wish list count and have a reasonable predictor for how much money you'll make from those wish lists? I would say with certainty in the case of this Kit Fox data, like mathematically that has to be the case because I've been able to observe what games were bought. Of course, that's also like looking through the rear view mirror. Because it worked in the past doesn't necessarily mean that in the future it's going to be so. But that's kind of true for any sort of forecast that you do. So if you have, so you'll notice I'm being a little cagey in terms of how this works. But yes, essentially what this measure is the dollar value of an individual wish list, because Valve does not allow you to say, person X wish listed your game on this day and we tracked it over time and it was in fact person X who like played your demo wound up converting.
Right.
We're only going to be doing inferences of averages. This is why statistics exist, so that we can sort of make some general statements about populations rather than individuals. But I would put it to you this way. If you feel that the assumptions underlying this kind of analysis would apply to your game, then you can multiply the number of wish lists that you have by the wish list value, and that would give you an idea in the long run of what the money that you'd be bringing in. The thing is, of course, is that I also understand, like I'm taking an economics point of view here. So I get to say weird things like you can borrow money at 0% interest because that's kind of what the Bank of Canada has it at. You as an independent developer are very likely going to be facing some cash flow concerns. And so it will actually matter when those dollars come in. And so in this particular case here, this might be where you want to do sort of a 1-year analysis. You cut the series off at 1 year and you can sort of say, I pretend that all sales that occur the year after don't count. And obviously the wishlist value will be slower at that point because you're not accounting for a bunch of the people who'll be coming in and buying your game later. But I think we all kind of wish that our studios will sort of have infinite time horizons, and ultimately, I mean, this is a common thing that you'll hear from a lot of more senior developers, right? That you get a few games out and there is a little bit more cash flow that comes from sort of your back catalog going on sale and such. So it's not an outrageous claim for me to make. I just don't want somebody sort of seeing that for Kit Fox it was $2 or $3. Multiply your wish list by $3 because we all like to hope for the best, and then be super disappointed if in the first year you make like a third of that.
Yeah. I think we got one last question here to go out on from Eden student in the chat here. Would you speculate that a wish list is worth more for a higher budget / higher cost AAA game, or does it level out somewhere?
Yeah, necessarily that's the case. So if you take a look at Moonhunters here, Moonhunters is a more... Actually, I'm sorry, I didn't explain this before. Moonhunters actually costs more as a base price than the Shrouded Isle. So we actually see that inside of the data. Now, again, I'm breaking my own rule, right? Because I'm comparing, the much longer time period for Moonhunters than the Shrouded Isle. But, even if we were to focus, let's say, for the observed periods here, so 24 months from release, after release, I mean, this game was in 2016, 2017. There will be some people who convert, but probably the bulk of people in these wishlist cohorts would have converted. And the value for Moonhunters is higher, and that's because the average price for Moonhunters was higher. And so a AAA game is going to have a higher price. It's going to it's basically going to have that higher expected value. But of course, there's other factors into it. That game also costs more to make. One kind of game you can do for yourself, like let's say it's like, okay, well, I don't want to rely on the past data, but I want to start thinking in this form. You can say, well, what if I price my game too high? Well, what's going to happen is your average price is probably going to sink down to like what the market will bear. And what's going to happen is your conversion rates are going to be quite a bit lower while it's at that maybe unbearably high price. And I'll be the first one to say that really sucks, because Lucifer Within Us had a bunch of people who were like, oh, it took me 2 hours to get through this game. It's not worth $20. And I'm like, yeah, well, it took me 4 hours. So I don't know what the hell you were doing, but it's actually a really, really good game. And I'm not saying that because they gave me their data. Like, I legitimately enjoyed playing the game. And I frankly don't give a damn that people think that you can divide by the number of hours it took you and come up with some idea of quality. Like, it's a good game, and I'm happier having spent the time watching that or like playing that than like watching some, show on Netflix. So in this case here, you can start thinking in those lines. Necessarily, AAA games will have higher expected values for wish lists because they cost more. People are also going to buy them on discounts, but ultimately these games reflect a lot of investment and a lot of talent, and they will bear a higher price. And so while the propensities might still be low until they go on discount, ultimately I would expect those games to have higher values. And that's simply because I saw that Moonhunters, the more expensive game, had a higher expected value than the Shrouded Isle.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff.
So I know my answers are super long.
No,
if you have questions that are if I haven't answered questions, I have set aside some time for after the meetup, so I'll happily talk with anybody without filibustering the rest of the presentations.
Oh, I love it. This is it's like your lecture time. It's good. Everyone needs a little math in their lives, right? Data highly overrated. Underrated.
Underrated.
And with that, we will be back. Norman Chalk, always a pleasure. We will be back with our next presenter in just a couple seconds while we pull ourselves up off of the floor. All right, here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with our second last, also known as penultimate presenter of the night, Ryan Warner. What's going on, Ryan?
Hi, Derek. How are you? I'm really good.
I'm doing great. Take it away.
That's great. Well, thanks for having me tonight. I'm here to show you Deathlap Deathmatch. It's a game that I built for a competition put on by Manticore Games for their core game engine. So it's just a simple team deathmatch game. I've got myself up and running here, and I've got a few of my friends here to join me, so I'll just give it a run around. So Core is an Unreal-based engine. It's sort of a derivative. They've removed some of the like C# and Blueprint elements of the game and replaced them with like Lua and that sort of stuff. You don't have the ability to import content directly into the engine from something like Maya or Max. Instead, they provide a variety of pre-made template assets that you can build your game with, as well as a bunch of game templates as well.
Oh, this is cool. Did you say this was built in Core?
Yeah, so
I'm not familiar with Core.
Well, it only came out in I believe it was September of last year. It's still in open alpha, and it's been bankrolled to the tune of $45 million, partially by Epic and then other investors as well. So they have kind of a different platform. All of the games are baked in to the game platform. So you are simply just downloading the Lua scripts and text file asset definitions when you load up a game in Core here. So everything's already on your machine. So this was built over the course of 2 weeks. The initial design I built out in about 48 hours over a weekend, just as a gray box. I actually started with this area here that we're looking at right now. These two doors and this window. And then just iterated over the course of the weekend to build out this map structure. The contest itself was heavily focused on design elements, the graphics and that sort of thing. So I wanted to spend a lot of time on that before I started onto the gameplay, and decided to just use the team deathmatch template that they had, given that it was like a combat arena themed competition.
Mm-hmm. So what was sort of like your inspiration for putting some of these levels together, as far as like the design for it and everything?
It's all very much based on like Quake and Doom, that sort of thing out of the the late 90s. Those early PC games is what I was going for this sort of aesthetic. So I actually ended up placing second in the competition.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I attribute it mostly to the lighting. I really like lighting more than anything, as far as game design and dev goes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is excellent lighting. It definitely sets the mood for the scenario.
I appreciate that. And yes, so Core is very simple to work with. You can essentially get up and running in about half an hour with some semblance of a nice looking game. I found out about it in August when Extra Credits was putting on a game jam featuring Core. I ended up putting together 2 games that weekend. The first was a King of the Hill style game, the second of which was a mini MMO. So it has 50 levels, a variety of weapons and that sort of thing, and a nice castle and a ravine where you can go in the back and slay some monsters with your friends. That was quite successful, and I was very happy with the result and ended up placing third in that competition, which had a cash prize. Manticore incentivizes their competitions with cash prizes for the top placing entries. They have one running right now. The theme will be revealed tomorrow. And there is a $20,000 prize pool for anyone interested.
Ooh.
Nice.
Just to be clear, I am in no way associated with the company, and this is a plug. But it is open to anyone. There's a student competition happening right now as well for anyone who is currently enrolled in any sort of educational level.
That's cool. I love the lighting on this. Everything has like the perfect amount of bloom, basically, mixed with like the dark environments and everything.
I appreciate that. I do have a tendency to overdo post-processing. I don't actually have any professional game development experience. So, just being a hobbyist, I tend to just go with what I like. So.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. There's a lot of cool, like, volumetric, foggy lighting stuff going on.
It's my favorite.
I like how you backlit the stairs so that you can see them very easily, so that you know where you can change elevation.
Oh yeah, I didn't really notice that.
Very key. The rotator here also casts a dynamic shadow, so that moves with you as well.
This is cool. Yeah. I think you were saying before this was one of the first things you've worked on, right?
That's right. Yeah, this is the first thing that I'm really happy to show off and demonstrate to people.
Yeah.
So prior to this, I had been fooling around with Unity for a number of years, but never really getting anywhere. I started to do some game jams midway through late last year, or midway through this year, I guess. And so I've now put out 5 games in Core of varying degrees of quality. Thank you.
I mean, what else is there to do in 2020 but make video games?
Right. Everyone's been sequestered. So, so that's the long and the short of it. Thank you for letting me show this off. Did anyone have any questions that cool. I could answer?
Well, let's talk about Lab 613.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Kingston, but live in Ottawa now. So, you need some sort of characterization to your environment. So I figured, why not shit out to home?
Represent. That's great. So, like, is this like, how can people grab this? Is it available online? Can people, or do you need the core engine to play it?
You do need the core client, but I've shared the link to the game page in the Twitch chat. So following that link has a play now button that will download the client for you and let you start it right up and get started in developing your own games 10 minutes after that. Everything is baked right into the client, from multiplayer, all of the animations, the publishing, and the social network elements are all within the core platform.
Wait, so if other people click that link right now and downloaded this, could they jump into this game right now and like be in here with you guys?
Absolutely. Of course, yes, absolutely.
Let's see how fast
this is
people
all
can
a live
click.
service. And,
on it.
This oh, there we are.
Oh, look at that. We already got somebody in there. Perfect. Let's see if we can get a couple other people in there. This is your duty, Dirty Rectangles chat. To get in here and get I think we can have 10 players or 20 players in here? Deathmatch?
I set it up to be 8, I believe, but the client does support up to 16 in games that have set that up.
Oh, let's see. Oh, Chicken Soup left.
Oh, that's okay.
So the server, like, does Core run the server, and it's just like
yes, Core runs everything.
Okay,
that's right. So when you start up the game, if there's no instance running, it will spin one up for you and shut it down afterwards. So it's a sort of serverless setup. They have a server in Europe and one in the East Coast of the US. So things run pretty well. And the entirety of the hosting is handled through there. They're currently running a payout pilot program whereby creators are paid $3 per daily average user that play their game. I don't have all of the details about that, but I have been invited to the program, and it's very quick and straightforward to get set up in.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, since this is like a very different model from most game engines, like what the ownership, like intellectual property situation is.
Explicitly, you own your intellectual property, but the games do only execute in the core client. So that is of appeal to some and perhaps not to others. But in my position as a hobbyist, I think it's entirely suitable for my needs.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's super cool. And then the editor, you were saying you were saying something about it being C# and then they took out the C# and made it blueprinty or something?
Sorry, so it is Unreal Engine under the hood. So everything's C++ and Blueprint. However, direct access to that has been disabled in favor of creating a custom API that is accessed through Lua scripts.
Lua.
They're very straightforward to work with. The API has all of the multiplayer facilities in it, all of the player equipment, that sort of thing. So it's as simple as player : unequip to drop your weapons.
Yeah. This is cool. So you've made a few of these now using Core. Are you going to keep using Core?
I have one more project that I'm planning. It's sort of a run for the hills type game where all of the players except one are trying to escape to a goal. The other player is trying to prevent them from getting to the goal. I have the core implementation, the core mechanics implemented at this time, and I'm still trying to decide on a theme for it at the moment.
Very cool. There's a couple of people in the chat that say they're on their way into joining this game. Did you have to? You said you limited it down to 8 players. Is there like an actual limit in Core to multiplayer that you know of? Like, could you have someone in the chat also mentioned when does the Battle Royale version of this come out? Like, could you have like 99 players in a Core multiplayer match?
Well, the limit is 16, but if someone would like to see how simple it is to create a Battle Royale game, that's something I can do in the next 2 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll just close this. You should still see the client up and running. I'll just go in here into create new, view frameworks, Battle Royale, DRBR test 1.
Sell it.
I'm great at names. Let me just say that right now. Okay, so this is the editor. This is the game world. It's a very basic game world, as you can see. You would usually go through and customize that yourself. We're just going to set the player count to 2 for the demo.
I'm loving this dark mode theme.
Hell yeah.
Okay. So there we have
Is that
our
the
Battle
play?
Royale.
Where we dropping, fam?
Oh my god.
There's our Battle Royale game. So I can actually put this live now, and everyone could play this during this stream. It's got the full mechanics suite, everything you want for a Battle Royale game. But
like that.
That's not all. And one more thing. Core's philosophy is very open source oriented. Core and Manticore have published their own Battle Royale game. You can take that Battle Royale game, or Death Lab Deathmatch, or any of my games, and modify them to suit your own needs and publish them for your own content and use, and monetize them yourself.
That's super cool. Do you know if you can put like credits on it to get like attribution or anything like that when you do any kind of like remixing like that? Because then that makes me think of like Dreams or something on like PS4 where you can remix other people's work, but then the original creator is always like tied to it in some way, right?
So right now, there isn't currently a system in place for that, but that is that is in active development. Manticore has commented that they are working on that, and recently they just developed tools to allow creators who do collaborate to further break down their daily gameplays, so they can distribute the funds on a per game basis when they do collaborate.
This is so cool. I want to mess around with this. This is the first time I've heard of this. I don't know how it slipped under my radar for it being out for like a year, I guess, but
it is still an open alpha.
Yeah. Have any of you other guys heard of this? Organizers, Dirty Rectangles organizers?
No, but this looks super sweet.
Not at all.
No,
but this
I hadn't
looks
heard
like
of it.
a blast.
Yeah.
So I also built rebuilt Team Fortress's 2 Forts.
Oh yes,
map.
yes. Load that right now.
So that's another map that I have created, and that was for a global game jam competition put on by Core, whereby a global game jam site was awarded $100 for any participants who designated them as their site. So I designated Carleton Information Technologies Game School as my site.
That's so cool. Wow. Ryan, this is amazing. Any other questions or anything else from anyone else here?
Sean throwing shade on Lumberyard in chat.
This is cool. Is your server for the initial game, does that have to be like up and running? Like, do you have to like click play and have that hosted, or is that just like constantly running so someone could just like jump in at any time?
So when you are playing the preview like I am now, that's all running locally. You can add as many bots to your local session as you wish. You can publish the game in private mode for your testing before you're ready to publish it publicly.
Right. Cool.
Great.
This is cool, man.
Yeah, it's excellent. Thank you.
Any last things you want to show us before we move on here, Ryan?
There's a million, but we don't have that kind of time, and I really appreciate all the time that I've had so far.
Oh, sounds good. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Everyone stall for a second. I got to get the next bumper set up. I totally forgot. Somebody say something.
So parachutes. What are those about?
I love that the airplane that you fly in on is a paper airplane by default. That's pretty fun.
I also appreciate the dancing pumpkin dance. Like that's the dancing pumpkin dance. Am I right?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
I believe so.
Lovely.
Keep going. You're doing great.
I don't have much to contribute in terms of stalling because, admittedly, I'm in the middle of eating a slice of pizza.
Okay, I think we're good now. Ryan,
thank you
for everything. We will be back in just a second with our last presenter of the night. Don't go anywhere. It's gonna be a good one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with our final presenter of the night, the one and only Tanner Pi Richardson.
Me. Hello.
Hi.
Cool. Okay, I'm excited. I paused the Twitch stream because just old habits make you think that if you call into a radio station, you turn down the radio. So if I'm being streamed, I'm gonna pause the stream. Okay. So hi. I'm not exactly sure how the format works. If I'm supposed to do introductions, but I'll give a super tiny one because I have some topical things. So at the beginning, Kezia was wearing an Xbox shirt. Behind me for decoration, I have a shirt that was given to me at Dirty Rectangles. My only gaming shirt, a Skullgirls 2014 shirt that Jason Nguyen bought for me at I think it was like PAX or something, and I like gave him a 20 at ye old oh my god, Avant-Garde Bar in Ottawa.
Avant-Garde.
Brings
how
back
I miss
so
it.
many memories. Just all
Oh
those
my
words
goodness.
squished together.
Yeah. So I'm over in snowy Edmonton. It's not as oily as you think, but it is pretty oily, and that's where I am. So the reason I wanted to do this talk is because I do not currently make games. I switched into marketing, but I love games, and I'm trying to slowly, at some point, get back into it in a different capacity. I'm close. I do some stuff in esports, like I help people in esports, but I'm not at game dev yet. But here in town, some of the first people I met were game developers, and everyone who I follow on Twitter is mostly Ottawa-based game developers and their friends. So I've still been very much following the community, and this is just sort of like I've been doing this for 5 years, and a lot of the things that I've learned, I'm always thinking of like, well, how could this be applied to like all the friends they made in Ottawa who are indie game developers? So the topic of this talk, and it was written, the idea for this came pre-COVID, but it was how to turn your daily coffee money into game sales. And today, when I look back at the title, I would add a pre-COVID talk that is still relevant, if not more so. So that's sort of my introduction. So what was the point here? The point was I run a whole bunch of ads for people, and I do it on Facebook and Instagram. I've done some YouTube ads. Obviously, I don't do Google ads because blah. And I'm watching TikTok ads very carefully. So I wanted to sort of come at everyone with two halves, and one of them was obviously you've seen ads for games. You've definitely seen the AAA mega ads on YouTube, and you've probably seen some indie stuff on maybe even Instagram and maybe YouTube. And like most people, and this is similar to like how Netflix talks about their marketing, you're probably hearing most games first from word of mouth or through the client page of choice, be that the Epic Game Store or Steam or itch.io or whatever. So I think that a lot of people are going to decide that marketing their game matters a lot, and then they're going to want to do that, and they're going to set down a path. And like some of the people who are in the Dirty Rectangles and who were once teachers of mine, it's a path you have to take on your own, but it's great if you have some guidance from someone who's done it before. And so that's what I'm here to sort of talk about. So I'm going to make a few assumptions. One is that everyone here is like super duper smart, and so although I'm going to explain things, I'm not going to explain anything like like you're 5. Like I know you know what you're doing, and you know your game better than I do, and you know your community better than I do, and I'll get to why that's important. So I want to talk about if I was in your shoes, what I think some of the goals would be from a marketing standpoint from your game. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is pre-launch. So you would want to build your community. You would want to possibly get things wish listed, which I was thinking about from a previous talk. You may want beta signups. Or you might want to work with some influencers, like maybe that's where you're going to put all of your time and effort. And I think those are all really valid strategies. It just depends what is it that you're trying to do. And so I want to go through some of that. So I think community building is really important, and I have been watching a number of different, primarily Discord servers and also some social accounts and some creators in games do a really, really, really amazing job of this. And there's obviously, yes, there are some tactics where you look at something and you think, well, I'll never be able to do that. That's AAA. Or you might look at something and say, well, I'll never be able to do that. You know, they were indie, but they got this big publisher or what have you. And I would like to challenge that. I have seen some very, very impressive Discord servers that have been ran almost entirely by devs, where they have grown these servers so far ahead of their launch, in some cases even so far ahead of their alpha. And I actually have some links to some of these Discord servers. I think I just picked a pair out of my list that I've been sort of watching for this specific sake, and I'll post them in the chat. I'm not sure how far back the message history goes, but as a point of research, it's really, really interesting to go through some of the channels and see what the growth has looked like month by month, see how they've handled some of their previous sort of milestones, be it closed alpha, open beta, etc. So I shared one due process, sort of a Rainbow Six Siege, but more accessible, and you can draw on the map. And I've shared the Pocket Watch Discord, the creators of Monaco and also Tooth and Tail. Both games I think are really, really great. So I'll move past that point. But the reason I was sharing due process was because, again, like they started a journey. And then they decided, okay, Discord is here from day one. They've had a regular discourse with their community from when their team was small to the size that it's at now, and they're really kind of keeping the momentum going. And for Pocket Watch, because being a relatively niche strategy game, your player base kind of like spikes at launch and then gets really, really small really fast, and you need players for a multiplayer game. And so they've worked really hard to sort of empower their community and keep their community enthusiastic, so that at least when people buy the game, there's always someone that they can play with. And they've actually put a button right inside their very minimalist menus to join the Discord, so that if you have questions, or if your first game is against one of the best players in the world, like when I play, I regularly play against some of the best people. I'm one of the worst, but it's just there's not many people who play the game. If you get bopped, you can go to the Discord and probably chat with that same player there and there, and they'll try and keep you in the game, keep you engaged, and the devs will too. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about, I'm just checking time here, is actually things that you can do to build that Discord community from a advertising and marketing perspective. Of course, you can go on Reddit and you can link to it here and there, but you can also spend a little bit of money to get people in there. And as I'm going to jump into in a bit here, the earlier that you spend even a fraction of money, like your coffee money for maybe 1 week, if we were all still going out and buying coffee, you can, it's not about the instant results of those ads in terms of like clicks or views. It's about the data that you get back from that and building that data up to a milestone when the money that you're putting out actually matters. And small amounts of money really do go a long way. I actually, when I'm going to screen share later, I have some tabs open from some ads that I've ran for people who had very, very small budgets. One was for a restaurant in their first moves after the lockdown here in Edmonton, and their marketing budget for the week was $40 because wages is such a big deal. And by working with them, we were able to do some really, really impressive stuff. So I'll get into that. So I wanted to just give some tangible tactics that I think have worked really, really well for people. So this is where I was saying I'm not going to talk like you're silly, like you know more than I do about the game dev space, but being the voice behind your game, obviously super, super powerful. Like I think some of the people I follow is All the Rectangles, of course, as well as Rami Ismail. I really, really like what he does. And Fall Guys writes as if they're in first person, which is the reason people engage with their tweets so much. What are some other game-related things? There's a mouse brand that you should all research called Final Mouse. They write as if they're Elon Musk and Kanye West who had a baby, and that computer mice are actually a religious ornament. They make a lot of sales purely based off of their tweets. So as a dev who's maybe wearing multiple hats, maybe probably still working a day job, Twitter can be your best friend because it's the lowest amount of actual time and potentially some of the highest impact if you put thought into it. So yeah, like someone said actually earlier in the chat, massive tweets. That's all the big upticks for your game sales. But no, seriously. So other than that, and for building out a Discord, I'll save the actual like advertising stuff for the last bit. I'm just going to quickly go through a tactic that I found really useful for being a nobody, me, and trying to get the attention of an influencer. So obviously, everyone knows that streamers and content creators are your influencers of choice for games. Interestingly enough, for that due process game I was talking about, they had no influencer marketing at all. All keys that were given out early were you can play it, but you can't stream it. And then their first influencer was Shroud, which is crazy, but they have investors, so I guess they were able to afford that. But there's actually a lot of value in those micro influencers. People who have between 10 to 70 to 100 streamers are going to be people who are you're much more likely to get their attention through their inbox, and actually whose communities are still able to interact with them. You know, those are the people who are able to read every chat message. And actually, when they say something or they play something and they pick it apart, like people listen. So I wanted to give a little tactic that I used. This is the only tactic that I've used in the cold email land that's actually worked for me. So if I'm writing someone, and let's say out of a batch, this is someone who I really respect and I really like what they do and I really want their attention, I write an email headline that is so obviously tailored to them that they can't help but know that it's not being auto generated. Like I'll make reference to their most recent stream or to a personal interaction that I've had with them or something like that, and I'll try and throw in an emoji if I can too, but like not too much. And then I'll give the breakdown of, so let's say I'm putting myself in the developer shoes, I'll give the breakdown of what my game is, why I want them particularly to play it, why I think it would resonate with their audience. And then I actually shoot them a private YouTube video, like unlisted. This is important. And I add it and I write, if you need some more details, I shot you a private video giving a short summary. And I don't watch the video that I shot. I upload it and I share them the link. And what happens is if they watch it, the video on your the view count on your unlisted video will go to 1. So this is a way of quantifying whether or not your cold emails work. Like this is really valuable data to you because you might be writing emails that are just coming across weird to people, or maybe you're writing to the wrong people. But if you have your Excel sheet or your Google sheet, and if you're into data, which I can tell everyone was, because like I don't know about you guys, but I was like in my monitor during the talk about wish listing. That was really, really cool and also really well spoken. That was awesome. I'm jealous. Yeah. So if you know you have your Excel sheet and you're like, okay, I'm going to reach out to all these influencers. There's more data for you to have than just like did they respond or not. There's also did they open your email, and then there's also did they open your video. And again, with YouTube stats, you can actually see where it was opened. So I had an experience where my main client now, I did this for her and I saw that it was opened in Montreal and it was open in Los Angeles. And I was like, oh, the client and her agent opened the email, and things progressed from there. So that's just like a cool little hack, especially if you're not doing this for hundreds of people, but maybe you've picked a couple dozen people, then this is something that can work for you. I just filmed them vertically on my phone. I was walking along in boring Edmonton and I figured I had the time and it worked out. So I figured I'd share that. One other kind of side thing to consider when picking a content creator, I understand that it can feel maybe a little like dismal or, you know, kind of depressing when you look at these content creators with big numbers and you're like, oh, like they'll never pay attention to me. And even with that cute little YouTube strategy I talked about, they might still not. But something you can do when picking a smaller content creator is look for content creators who, although small, have other content creators that follow their lead. So we can look at, I'm going to mess up all the names, but there was like an era where everyone was playing horror games on YouTube, and that didn't start with the biggest YouTubers. That started with like the middle of the pack, and then the biggest YouTubers tried to do what they did, and then the bottom of the pack follows. So you can find people that are reachable and who will listen to you, and they are sort of like trailblazers in that regard. Okay, I'm going to skip near the end because I think I'm already getting close to time. Just checking my notes on where I was at here. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to touch on was actually running ads on Instagram. I think that a lot of people should do it, but I think that they might have the wrong goals in mind. And there's some really simple things that I can show you. I have 3 tabs open. I can super quickly run through it if we have time, and it will really help you with what you're doing. So the first thing I want to say is the advertising tools that YouTube and Facebook offer you do not need to be used to run ads. You can use them to run whatever you want, really. You could use them to run a message that has no call to action. You could spend $20 to wish people a good day, and you could probably have that seen by a couple thousand people and feel really good about yourself. So for practical reasons, I'm going to share my screen here for a quick second. You could just match an ad to whatever it is you want to do, and the content can be whatever it is. You could be announcing your Discord going live. You could be announcing that your game is in open beta, or you could be announcing that it has in fact launched. The thing about, and I'm sharing my screen here, and I'll get into what's going on here on the screen here in a second. And this was, by the way, this is the restaurant where I helped them out with one of their little post-opening ads. So the thing about running these ads is that Facebook would like to have you believe that there's a 3-step process. And if I hit create here, hopefully it comes up. They would like you to believe that it starts with brand awareness and reach, that then there's a consideration phase, and finally you're going to get all your conversions. But what actually happens, and this comes from my own experience and also talking to a Facebook rep one time, is brand awareness and reach, those are really intended for cemented brands, like big ones like Coca-Cola, where they're bringing back their vanilla flavor and everybody knows what that is. So you actually want to skip this stage. And on the other side of things, you can't start at conversions. Just because this is here, this isn't actually an option to you. You will literally throw all your money away if you wait until your game is launching and you try and run a conversion ad. And I just want to reiterate, this is not specifically for Facebook. I'm actually focusing more towards Instagram in most cases, but it runs through this system. You might be tempted to do traffic, where you're directing people to a website, and that can work. But what's the best thing to do is always lead with video views. There's a reason for that. These are all habits. So when you target video views, what Facebook will do is it will try and show your video to people who match your targeting and who actually like to watch videos, which means you, as a game developer, get to get your message across. And then when you're looking at your feedback you get from it, when you're getting your result, it's based on what was your goal. So my goal was video views for this ad here. It was an August long weekend promo. My result, not clicks, was through plays. So people who watched the video through to completion. This is for a restaurant local in town here. So of all the people who watched it, this small portion of people actually watched it through to completion. And then it says cost per result. So 7 cents per person who watched it all the way through. And then, of course, there's the amount spent. And you can see that there were some clicks that came through, or in this case, the entire thing, I asked them to film all vertically, and it was a swipe up ad. So these are actually swipe ups. Now, these clicks are cool, and some of them would have converted to actual brain freeze to actual orders. I don't actually know that because they haven't fully set up their backend, but you as a developer, you have the great ability to program in your own hooks, so your Facebook tracking pixels, so you can actually tell from your ad everything that someone has done, how far into your game they've gotten, did they complete the tutorial, have they made a microtransaction in game. All of that is open to you, and from what I understand, it's super easy code to plug in. I'm going to roll back just one tiny little bit and then push this talk forward as fast as I can to Q&A. So this was an ad that I ran, and the way this works is you have your campaign, you have your targeting, and then you have your creative. So I'm going to skip to the end. and I'm going to show you what the creative looked like. Obviously, they were selling some food because they're a restaurant. And I'm going to let this play out just so that you can see what they're selling. So they chose to show it, and they chose to write what it was. Let's remember that my goal was to get people to watch this, because later on, if they do something similar, I could run an ad that says, hey, that bucket of people who watched almost all of it or all of it, I'd like to talk to them again. That's what retargeting is in essence. So back to this. We're showing them food. It cost 7 cents per result. That's a great number. How did we get there? Well, after the video editor came to me with this, and I asked him to put the text on top for people watching on mute, then I went to my targeting tools, and I literally in the targeting said, I would like to target people who are into teriyaki, smash burger, local businesses, barbecue, chili oil, bacon, short ribs, or brisket. Most of those are words that actually appeared on the screen. So there's no like smoke and mirrors. There's no secret formula. It's literally you match the creative exactly to who you want to talk to. And again, you as the developer, and not being a restaurant or a clothing company or whatever with all these crazy moving parts, you have the benefit that all your assets belong to you. You can pick any asset you want. If you have 2 elements of your game, if there's crafting, if there's base management, but another part of your game is like super fast action, you can target the crafting and base management to people who are into like Factorio or Dwarf Fortress, and literally write in those games. Like let me see if that exists as an example here as targeting. Let's see, Factorio. No, Dwarf Fortress. I'm gonna say almost definitely does. It doesn't. Big shame. But you know what? If you were selling an RTS, StarCraft 2 does. So, yeah, that's basically it on ads and how that stuff works. So I just wanted to share that. I'm going to go over it one more time because of everything that I've said. I think it's the most important. You can Google all this stuff and how to do it. I'm just heavily advising that you start with a piece of video content meant for a specific kind of audience. You start with video views as your objective, and then you target accordingly. And I would suggest you take your coffee money from a couple weeks, save it up, and start playing around a little bit with these ads, and you're going to have some great success, whether you're directing to your Discord when they click or swipe up, or you're directing them to a Steam page. And yeah, that is my talk.
Woo!
Cool.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay.
Very useful information.
Let me open up. I'm going to stop presenting my screen, and then I would love to know if there's any questions.
So let's talk some money, I guess. Like for as a developer who's interested in pursuing ads, right? In like small time developer, what are we actually talking about here in order to run something like this and run it to a point where you get some bang for your buck?
Sure. So I try to start, unless I'm working with like a big company, I actually try and start any and all ads at $20. It's always enough to get a good data set back. It's never enough to break the bank in most cases. Yeah, it's just worth it. $20 over a week. So yeah, you can ignore like all of the back end is obviously meant to encourage you to spend money. So the little bar that shows what your potential reach is, they make it look like that bar is barely filled at $20. Oh, you should really throw in more. If it's your first time using these ad platforms, you should actually be careful because there are some places where it puts in default values. It might put in 20 by default, but then when you pick a end of the campaign date, you might not notice that it was saying 20 a day. And so if you say I'd like to run my ad for 2 weeks, all of a sudden you're spending way more.
Right.
So be careful about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, $20. $20 will get you it will reach a couple thousand people. And as long as you're starting with video views, like I suggested, then you're going to get some great results if your targeting was on what it needed to be.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then great, your targeting was wrong, and you can A/B test really easily. So I also, let me go back one thing. 5 days, $20, and I would always try at least at least, let's do minimum, at least 2 different audiences where you're sending them 2 radically different sets of creative. So maybe 2 different player types and 2 different creative pieces, or
Right.
2 different videos, whatever.
Yeah. Something you could do some science on, basically, afterwards.
Mhm.
That's super interesting. So, question in the chat here from System Chalk. You put a certain emphasis on Instagram. Do you think that's more suitable for gaming, or is that just where you're like focusing right now?
So I actually don't think Instagram is going to be a good place for you to make sales, and I think that shows by the companies that are versus are not advertising their games on Instagram. Right? We all see those big YouTube pre-rolls when games are coming out. I think the thing to remember is, the reality of the marketplaces that exist. You buy your games on a digital storefront, and even YouTube videos, like, just because we see them doesn't mean they convert. I actually don't even know how to click on an ad that Twitch shows me. I don't know how. I don't know where the button is. So I chose Instagram because it's got a lot more potential avenues of discovery. That's why. So when you run an ad on Instagram, sorry, I don't need to ramble for this. I can make it really simple. So let's say this is a YouTube ad, then there's just the ad and then it disappears. But if you run the same thing on Instagram, they can click on your profile photo. They can click the call to action button, which you get to word however you want. It can say learn more. It can say download now. It can say sign up. They can expand the text at the bottom. There can be text at the bottom. There can be messages and comments in the bottom. By the way, completely up to you. If you want to sit on that ad like a hawk and bookmark it on your phone, you can check back every day, and you can be one of those few ads where actually for every comment there's a response from the dev, which is really cool. I would say Instagram is better for community building focused ads. This is if you don't have the time to go hunt people down to join your Discord, for example.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. There's another good question here. Someone was wondering if you have a documented version of this talk somewhere. I think someone's looking for some pro tips. You should probably just message Sean Murphy. I think if you need a new client.
I will. Well, I'm here. So the cool thing about this actually is not a sales pitch. Like, I don't see this talk as a full answer to all of the questions, but I feel like it's enough to actually be helpful for people who might be near that stage of their game, and definitely helpful because it applies so much to people who are like, I don't even know what my release date is, but I know I want to have like a big community that's filled with people, whether that be like a single player indie game and you just want to be one of those games where people start making fan art or something. Like, it's worth it. An example in town here, there's a game called Little Hellions coming out for Nintendo Switch being developed. Pretty much by an indie person, and they started a Discord off, and they're doing all the art for their own game. And because of that, and because they keep teasing art all the time, all the artists came out of the woodwork. So that's just like a cool feature of their community, and they wouldn't have known if they didn't push their Discord so hard. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Any questions from the other Rectangles organizers here?
I just want to throw Doritos in.
Yeah, let's get some Doritos in the chat here for Tanner while we're waiting around.
Yeah,
Tanner,
awesome.
Tanner giving himself
Thank
his
you.
own Doritos here. That can't be. Come on now. Let's get some more Doritos going. So question here from Eden Student. So what do you think would actually be the best platform for advertising for a first game pre-launch as like an indie? Where do you go?
Pre-launch. Okay, so if you're going to pick a platform so that you're sort of master of your own narrative, I'm going to say Instagram. It's just easiest. It's most affordable, hands down. If you can make it vertical and you can make it engaging, so you haven't taken a 1080p and cropped the vertical in.
Right.
This is where using some like Unity, Unreal, whatever you're working in Magic can actually be to your benefit. So I'm going to say Instagram. Focus on swipe ups if you can because it's cheapest. Feed works just as well. And tied with that is those micro influencers. They're like a platform of their own. And that's why I was giving that weird, how I got their attention through YouTube tip is just because it's tough, but it's well worth your while. Like, there's nothing better than a human being. And that's where the whole marketing industry is going to.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. I like the thing that you said about like doing a cheap run for like a week and then doing another one that's targeting an entirely different crew with an entirely different strategy and blah blah blah, and A/B testing that, right? Like starting really small, particularly when you are a new developer, you're putting out your first game, you have no idea how it's going to go. Maybe show a couple of different sides of it to people and see which side is resonating, right? And then that gives you a little bit more data, which is the word of the day, to like finish up your game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like 20, let's say you just start pocketing. I just think that this is really where the thought of it came. I didn't think of the title after I had the talk. I thought of like, what if I just saved all my coffee money and ran it on ads? But when I had that thought, I was like, what would I advertise? Like, I don't have enough. Like, what would I advertise? And I was like, oh, what if I was making a game? And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, this is realistic. You move down the rungs into some out of the big bucket or some instant coffee, and like, there you go. You have enough to run an ad. So yeah, $20 is a great starting point.
That's super cool. Tanner, this was amazing.
Thank you very much.
This is usually the time of the show where we start doing our send-offs. If the other organizers want to come off cam, Tanner, you're welcome to hang out in the room with us while we do this.
It's Yuffie.
Oh, did Yuffie show up?
She showed up.
Yuffie, finally.
Hi, Yuffie.
Oh, wait.
Yuffie, look up here. Look at the cam.
We gotta get some Yuffie emotes in the chat, folks.
Get that Yuffie
I got my
emote
little
in
kitty
the
right
chat.
here too.
Oh, you got a cat there too? Where's my cat? My cats aren't here.
Everyone get their cats.
Everybody, thanks so much for joining us for this November edition of Dirty Rectangles. Like we said, November, we're not going to do an official one of these with presenters or something, but we'll probably do something fun, right?
We'll hang out. We'll have a nice little holiday, joyous, festive time.
Yeah, we like to have
video
fun.
games.
Sure, yeah. I hear
Does
those
the chat
are
have
popular.
any suggestions of what the Dirty Rectangles organizer should do for Christmas?
Other than 24-hour X-Files marathon?
Yeah, exactly.
Please let us know.
Tanner said we should play Among Us.
We could.
We could actually do that. Or keep talking. We could also do that.
You could speak to us, Tanner. You're still in the room.
Right, typing away furiously.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
We could try to whip up something in core.
That would be kind of fun, actually. Maybe we do like a core jam. We all jump in there. We get that battle royale going. Do a 99-person drop. That'd be kind of fun.
Make the avant-garde as a deathmatch map.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah. So small. See you in the pit.
As well.
Oh boy.
Well, it'd be like classic rat mode in classic first-person shooter games.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Can we have the owners walking around as giant NPCs?
Yes, he's going to be carrying Alexi B walking around carrying a single piece of cake, asking who ordered this cake, who got this cake, who keeps ordering cake every time these video game people show up. It's Alan. It's Alan. Okay, we're going to get out of here. Thanks, everybody. You could check us out. The stream will be on demand on this Twitch channel for 2 weeks and then backed up onto our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search for Dirty Rectangles Online. You'll find us. Also, follow us on Twitter at Dirty Rectangles, also at rectangles_TO. And send us a message if you got a game and you wanna show it off. Right, folks?
Yeah.
Do that thing.
We're always looking for presenters. Don't be scared.
I had fun. That was my first time.
Hell yeah. See, Tanner had fun.
Ouch.
Tanner had fun.
Exactly.
Really great.
James's glasses keep beeping. We got cats. What can there's nothing not to love here.
All I can do is just increase the rapidity of the beeping.
You should. Okay, can you just like make it go? Is that as fast as it goes?
Yeah.
Right. Beep 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 beep. Okay, we're gonna get out of here, folks. It's been real. We'll be back That's loud. Okay, we'll be back next month with something, I don't know, or this whole show is just going to go up in flames.
End the show before these glasses explode.
Oh, bye everybody.
Bye.